What's up everyone? My name is Ashley Wylde and welcome to my channel. What do you say to a kid who's asking you about your non-binary identity? You may or may not know that right now what I'm doing for work is working direct care with children. Kids in the range of 7 to 12 are in a very interesting part of their life where they're curious and they have a lot of questions. My good friend Christian just made a video about being asked whether or not you're a girl or a boy on her channel. Go check it out, I'll put a card. And her video kind of re-inspired me to do this video, which I've been meaning to do for a while. It's one thing if a kid asks you about your gender and you have an answer that is one of the binary options, it's something they've already heard of, they're gonna understand it. It's the end of the line of questioning. When your identity is something else, non-binary or transgender as examples, you need to be able to have a sort of nuanced conversation. And I think the conversation looks different across ages, but I try to approach it with a couple of things in mind. First thing, it is not my job to educate this child. That is the child's parents and teachers and relatives and loved ones' jobs. I want it to be clear that in these interactions, I have no interest in imposing my perspectives on the world onto a child. Another thing to keep in mind is that the child may or may not be able to understand certain language, certain concepts, certain ideas, even certain ways that a person feels about their self because they might not have gotten to that point in their development yet. And the third thing I try to keep in mind is that how I respond to their questions about gender teaches them almost more than what I say to them. If I treat gender as a taboo subject, if I treat my gender as something to be whispered about and laughed about and snickered about, or something that we don't talk about here, or don't ask me that kind of question, or if I become bothered, agitated, angry, upset, what I teach the child I'm engaged with is that my gender, or maybe all people whose experience of gender is similar to mine, are outside of the kind of world that they have access to. That that's not something normal or good, that it's not something that they can talk about or ask about, and maybe if there's someone who might later go on to question their own gender, maybe they feel like they don't have anybody that they can relate to about it, or that they shouldn't try to relate about it. All of that being said, the way that I talk with children about my non-binary identity actually comes from a really funny story about a young cousin of mine, and he was only 2 or 3. It was sort of like a family barbecue. We were out in the backyard. I love my cousins. I love kids. I love playing. I'll get rough and tumble with them. So we were tossing a little Nerf football around. I'd throw it, he'd run for it. This kid is super into football. Like at this age can name off a bunch of quarterbacks and knows like all the team names and everything. He was loving this, going for the ball. I'd pick him up and tackle him. We'd roll around. He'd throw it. I'd punt it. We were having a blast. We've been playing together for maybe 45 minutes when all of a sudden he stops and he gets a very serious look and he says, "Are you a girl or a boy?" And that's how he spoke. That's where his language development was at, and yet he was able to come up with this question and voice it to me. I said to him, "Well, I don't know. What do you think?" And at this point he got really visibly frustrated. He was said, "You're a boy." and so, okay, so I thought about that and I said to him, "What makes you think I'm a boy?" And keep in mind, this is a young child. This is a person whose thoughts and ideas and words are still very mixed up, that they're still really working on putting those things together in a way that gives an output that other people can interpret. You know, this really gave him a sense of frustration, but also it was kind of magical. Like I got to watch him think. So he said back, "Boys are boys." And then he turned around and ran away from me. And that was the end of the experience. And I think that this moment is so telling because the only thing that I really tried to do when I was interacting with my young cousin is to give him the opportunity to ask questions, to explore his world, to try to figure out what's going on around him. What my actual identity is and the details of it are not only irrelevant to a child, but it's not even really what they're asking. They're asking me, "Are you a girl or a boy?" Not because it really matters to them whether or not I'm a girl or a boy, but instead because I've presented them with a challenge to the way that they were previously organizing the world. And the way that human beings learn and develop and grow is by being presented with challenges to the way that they were previously organizing their concept of the world. I find that story really poignant because my young cousin is quite young and it just illustrates what's going on in his brain. But I've had a similar conversation with children at work who are much older, much more proficient in language. language. And honestly, it goes sort of similar. Maybe something like this. Are you a girl or a boy? I don't know. What do you think? Well, at first I thought you were a boy because of your clothes and the way you cut your hair, but now I know you're a girl. Okay, well that's interesting. But you're a girl, right? Not really. So then you're a boy? No, not really, I don't think so. Okay. And most of the kids I engage with at this point, they usually kind of drop it because at this point they have enough information from me to go back and consider the way that they're thinking about the situation. And I try to have the conversation in this way because again, it's not my job to teach them what they think and believe. It is not my job to teach them about my experience. They're children. Arguably, the only job I have is to try to provide something of worth in response to a question that they have brought to me. And that's what I try to do. I know this isn't a perfect answer. It's certainly not an all-inclusive answer. It's based on my experience, and I can't speak for everyone. I can only speak about my experience. But in my experience, these kinds of conversations, which lead a child further into creativity and questioning and wonder, instead of trying to lead them towards specific and concrete understanding that they might or might not be able to fully grasp, helps alleviate what might be tension in the conversation, and also hopefully gives them a seed that they later get to pursue on their own terms, based on the things that they've learned to believe and think of their own accord, and also because of their parents, communities, teachers, churches, and surroundings. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I'm sure gonna have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. I'm not posting every week now, which means I'm only gonna make videos that I actually really want to make for you all, and videos you wanna see. So please leave a comment and let me know what kind of videos you'd like to see me making. Thanks.